Everyone, welcome to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Kris Ashley. I am so excited. I have with me an expert in coaching and constellation work and transformation and family patterns and systemic work. And I cannot wait to ask her so many questions. But first, a couple quick announcements. Head over to the links in my show notes. You're not only going to find links for my lovely guest, but you'll also find a link to my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by Marcy Shimoff, Bob Doyle, Michael Beckwith, all of whom were on The Secret. You will also find links to my courses, free downloads, free masterclass, and ways to sponsor the podcast. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. Sounds kind of funny that a paper has a podcast network, but we are doing tons in the personal development space. We have huge events. I was just on stage with Les Brown and Dr. Joe Vitale and Sharon Lecter, and we have so much planned. So stay in touch with what we're doing. Hi, I'm Kris. When I was younger, I went through trauma that caused me to feel broken and lost. But my life changed after I had a spiritual awakening. Since then, I've dedicated my life to studying and learning from masters all around the world that have helped me to create a life of fulfillment and abundance beyond my wildest dreams. Now I'm dedicated to sharing everything I've learned so that you don't have to suffer for decades like I did. I've seen people's lives completely transformed, and I share it all right here. All right, so with me today, I have Judy Wilkins-Smith. So Judy is a highly regarded executive coach, family patterns, systemic work, and constellations expert, transformational speaker, and author who is passionate about personal growth, visionary leadership, and positive, accelerated global change. The founder of System Dynamics for individuals and organizations. She has 20 years of expertise assisting high-performance individuals, Fortune 500 executives, and legacy families, and limiting cycles and create lasting breakthroughs and transitions into peak performance. So welcome, Judy. I'm so glad you're here.
It is lovely to be with you. It's lovely to be there in the Bay Area.
Yeah, you've been transported to the Bay Area today. Amazing. So I like to start all my episodes the same way. And that is by asking my guest, what is your origin story? And as someone who, we were just talking about Guardians of the Galaxy before this, I think you know what an origin story is. So, please tell me and listeners what it is that put you on this path and prompted you to become this expert in systemic work and constellations.
Yeah, so weird story. My background is actually in the healthcare profession. I moved over to the US for a business opportunity. My father was killed and they failed him. He was killed in a hospital. They failed him in all the areas that I'd been a specialist in. And so then it was a question of either go crazy or write books. And I stumbled into this discipline and somebody said to me, come learn my work and I'll help you with your new book. And I went and learned the work and got, may I point out, zero help with a new book. And but it set me on the path. And then people said to me, well, if you're working with individuals, can you work with organizations? Of course, yes, because organizations are people. And got into the organizational piece. And then I think for me, where things took a couple of different turns, where I realized that, number one, with a lot of systemic work and constellations, it's see the pattern that's not working, break the cycle, yay, we're good. And then people would say to me, and then what? And so I began to play very much in the space of, and then what? What's possible now? What more is possible? And then when I was busy doing that, along came my book, Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint. But as I was working with it, I began to realize that, hold on a minute, not only do we have our physical DNA, but we also inherit emotional DNA, and that there's a lot of power in that DNA. And that's when my second book came up, because I realized that we don't just have genealogy. We think that genealogy is, this is where you were born, congratulations, now you know where you belong. And everybody's excited because maybe I'm connected to Louis XIV or whoever it is. But there's a lot more to that. There's also genealogy 2.0, and genealogy 2.0 is What are the events in my lineage that have created reactions, thoughts, feelings, actions, mindsets, patterns that are now echoing all the way down to me, which is genealogy 3.0. In other words, how am I affected by my ancestry? But what is my purpose with all of those patterns that are coming down to me? Why? Why do I get hit with we all can't make money or everybody's depressed? And I began to realize that was happening was there was a pattern that was trying to stop and a pattern that was trying to start. The pattern that was trying to stop was your legacy. The pattern that was trying to stop is your gift to the world. It's who you are. But each of them have to look at each other to be activated. And so that's a lot of where I play.
That's amazing. And I totally forgot to read the part of your bio that you are a best-selling author of Decoding Your Emotional Blueprint. And what's your new book called again?
The new book is The Hidden Power in Your DNA.
Okay.
That's the one that links directly to anybody who has any thoughts of genealogy. You're going to find that you've got parts that you never knew that are going to show you why you're here, who you are, what your purpose is. I know lots of people looking for their purpose, life purpose. It's right in there. And what it is that you could do to unlock not just your zone of genius, which I know a lot of people are doing, but unlock your purpose and then write your own chapter. And that's the chapter that only you can write.
Okay, well, this sounds amazing. So I guess how do you even figure that out? Like, and I know you have to read the book, but maybe you could give us like some sort
No.
of insight in, how do you figure out like why you're here and what your purpose is?
So there are a number of clues and pointers.
Okay.
Where are you dogmatic? Where are you sad, mad, frustrated? Wherever you have hyperreactions to things, whether they're really positive hyperreactions or negative hyperreactions or dogmatic hyperreactions, those are your places to start looking. Because what it's saying to you is, take a look. You're overreacting here for a reason. You're loyal to your system in this way because your system is trying to get you to wake up, because then you can go and live the life that you were meant to live. 90% of the time, what we're doing is we are reliving the lives of our ancestors. We're not fully present, and we're not even creating a future. We're just regurgitating the same future. But this way, you can do that. And it hinges on words. It hinges on locks and doors. And when I say locks and doors, what are the things that say, don't do that in my system? And what are the things that say, I really, really want to do this? Because the heart's desire is the chapter that's trying to express, and the don't do it is the pattern that's trying to stop. It's trying to give you clues. It's saying to you, hey, when you are depressed like everybody else, all it means is we're getting more of the same, of the same, of the same. But when you're the antidote, when you're the one who's the joy bringer to the family, yay, now you're starting to write a different emotional DNA. So that's an important piece too. You don't just have physical DNA, you also inherit emotional DNA, your patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions. And so it's really important to sit down with any one of those. Take money.
Mm-hmm.
Sit down and write down all your thoughts, feelings, and actions about money. Write down all of your inactions around money. What are all the things that you tell yourself? How do you talk to money? Most people, by the way, don't talk to money because it's kind of forbidden. Money's this bad creature, but is it really? No, it's not. Love of money is not the root of all evil. Lust of money, maybe. Love of money is actually means you're a kind steward. But we've been told all of these stories to keep us small and to keep us locked down. And it's when you start to examine them and go, oh, I'm not miserable because I'm miserable. I'm carrying the family misery, that we go, well, I wonder what else is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so let me ask you, like, when you're doing that exercise and you're writing down all of those thoughts about money, like, is it possible that any of this is unconscious, or is it all something that can kind of like come out?
It's possible that most of it is unconscious, but as you start writing, you go, oh, hold on. My mom used to say, don't spend all your money because you'll be broke, or hide your money under a mattress. But her mother did the same, and her mother's mother did the same. And that began when there was the Great Depression and we had to hold on to what we had to hold on to. Well, the pattern has since stopped. I mean, the Great Depression stopped, but we're still echoing that pattern all the way down until somebody looks at it and goes, but it's not earning me any interest. If I went and put it in a bank, yeah. So it's looking at patterns that you deal with unconsciously and then going, oh, wait a minute, I do that. How would I like to do that? What's the best and the most and the highest and the biggest and the most wonderful thing that I could do with that? And that's when creative brain starts to kick in, and we migrate out of survival brain into creative brain. And then we get what we call the head, heart, gut. So now we have the heart begins to open. We've got creative brain doing its thing, and the gut goes, oh, yes, I don't have to be that squinched up ball anymore. I can finally be the inner compass I was born to be.
Very cool. And then I'm assuming you help with that process, right? Because sometimes if you don't know, or you've never done it, right? You don't even like know what all these possibilities are. Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just a money example. It's like, okay, you could put it in the bank, but you could also invest, right? Or you could, buy real estate, or you could, whatever.
Exactly. So helping with that also looks like a constellation, and most people don't know what that is.
I don't
And
tell me.
it's a super exciting. It's an amazing thing. Everybody who sees it goes, wow. So what happens is, if you come to a live event with me, you might come in and say, okay, I'm struggling with money.
Mm.
Let's have a look. What's the history of your money struggle? When did it start? What was happening in your life at the time? What did you make it mean about you? What did you make it mean about others? Does anyone in your family have a similar pattern? And we discover that maybe the pattern belongs to mom and her mom and her mom and her mom. But we want to check in. So what I'll do is say to you, okay, I want you to choose someone for your mom, your dad, yourself, and money. Just choose those representatives. Now give me a picture of what that looks like. And maybe you put mom and dad next to each other, and money's heading out the door, and you're sort of standing between the two. And I'll start to ask you questions. What's happening with money? Oh, in our family, it's terrible. Money doesn't love us. Okay. So when did you start saying that? And so what happens is you begin to see a living, breathing 3D picture of what it is that you hold in your brain. It plays out in front of you. It maps out in front of you so you can see it, hear it, feel it. And so you start to have an embodied experience of all of those inner sentences that you carry about money. And you can see the light bulbs going off. Oh, that's why I don't have money. Oh, that's what mom used to say. Oh my goodness, do I really want to say that? And so it facilitates that process of really having an embodied experience that then turns into that beautiful aha moment.
That's really cool. I want to try it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So do you find that just bringing these limited beliefs to the surface and just being aware of them can help someone really change their belief system? Because as we know, like, belief system is so rooted. Like, that's what everyone's trying to do, like change their belief system.
Okay, so here's the deal with
Okay.
the belief systems. I'm going to sit up straight here.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Here's the deal with belief systems. It's only going to stay there for as long as it is the major player in your life. So what I tell people is, if you've got a belief system here and you want to not even bypass it, outgrow it, you've got to have a stronger goal or belief system off to the side. So I can never save money. I can never save money. I can never save money. I'm useless at saving money. But what if I saved money over there and I could go get some timeshare at Disney World, and I could take my family there every 2 years? That's exciting. Now it's got my attention. It's stronger than where I am right now. So what you want has got to be stronger than where you are. Otherwise, you're going to stay a couch potato. But once it is stronger than where you are, you find yourself starting to have reasons to invest your attention and your thoughts and your money, and all of a sudden you're pointing in that direction, not just this direction anymore. That's how you change a belief system. there's another piece to that. Once you see what's held that belief system in play, in other words, let me think of a good one. I'm not a good leader. I've had that one because I do this work with Fortune 500 companies. I'm not a good leader. Who told you you weren't a good leader? No, look, I'm really not a good leader. I can't do presentations. Who told you that? My teacher back when I was 8 years old. And it happens to everybody. And I'm like, how many years ago was that? Well, but it's true. How do you know that? Well, because I've never given a presentation since. No, I wouldn't either. Not if the teacher shamed me in front of the class. But what might happen if you gave the most amazing talk that inspired people to get up and move and look at you as that leader? Oh, you mean I could do that? Yeah, you could, unless you want to be wedded to your teacher for eternity. You might want to have a look at this dream that you've got over here. I really like the idea of that. This is the minute we can turn our souls. We start to move in the direction that we want to be in. So it's the minute something gets that attention in a bigger way than where we're stuck right now. Because when we're stuck, you don't know this yourself. We have a million good ways and fabulous reasons to defend it. But the people who come to see me and really, really do well are generally the people who come for two reasons. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, or they're so clear that they want to do something different, that they want to understand, what do I need to do to turn myself in that direction? And so then it becomes a new thought, a new feeling, a new action with an elevated emotion and a really good and exciting and juicy goal. And that's what pulls us past all of those excuses.
I really love that explanation. I wrote a book myself about changing your mind to change your reality, and I explore belief systems a lot. And I love talking about this with people because everyone kind of has like a different angle, but it's all the same thing. And I like that the idea of like, you need to be pulled by something stronger. You need to have that North Star that you're going for.
Yep.
So, okay. So you were talking before about and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as you, I apologize. You were saying that we have this generational pattern, and then we have like who our soul is meant to be, right? And there's these conflicting things, and we figure out what our soul pattern is by what we get emotional about, right? Whether it's a good emotion, whether it's a bad emotion, or dogmatic, as you said. So how do we separate what's an emotional trigger from maybe that like genealogy pattern versus what's like really getting us amped up?
Okay, so they're actually parts of the same thing.
Oh,
okay. The pattern there, any pattern that we have, and this is something that people miss, is there for a reason. It's echoed down, and now it's sitting with you. And what it's saying is, can you please turn me into the gold I was meant to be? So everybody's been sad. And the sad pattern comes to you. You could be sad too. Or you look at that and you look at the multi-generational pattern, and you look at the precipitating event. And when you can see that event, and sometimes we don't even know what it is, so I'll get to that. But when we can see that and go, oh, so this is what triggered all of this sadness, but that's not mine. And I can do something different. That whole pattern is the one that's now going to give you purpose and wisdom, because it's going to show you what to not do, but it's also going to be what got you this far. So it's very important. Then you look at, what do I really, really want to do? I really want to be happy. I really want to go off and make a splash in the world. I don't want to play small like they all did, and I don't want to be sad. That's when there's a process that I do where I line people up, put them one behind the other, and I get them to push the new person forward and say, do something more. What more is possible? And then push them forward. Because that's what your system is asking you to do. It's saying, please, we've given you all the steps, become what we couldn't. You go do it. And then if you do, well, now you've started a new strand of emotional DNA that says, I have a daughter. Hey, you could do anything you want. Look here, I'm doing it. And daughter goes, well, of course, we can all do what we want. Mom does it. Everybody else fed that, though. So it's this, the pattern of I can't is saying it's time to stop. And the pattern of course I can, is saying it's time to wake up. But the two look at each other. This one is the wisdom for this one, and this one is the legacy for this one. And it belongs very beautifully together.
I love that, because it's like everything that you've gone through brings you to the moment where you're at and prepares you for what's
Absolutely.
next. But this is like bringing in like the whole lineage, right?
It's the whole lineage.
Yeah.
You did not happen in a vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said you were going to get to the part in a moment about like what happens if you don't have that vision. So how do we help people there? Or what is someone listening
What I
to?
was saying was, if you're not aware of where it came from, because some people don't know their family lineage, and by the way, just go spit in a bottle and you'll get a good clue. But anyway, if you don't know your family history, what you do is timeline your own life, and you'll start to see that there are patterns in your own life. And if you're not too sure where they came from, or if they've been around for a long time, the chances are those are links to your past. Anyway, what it's saying to you is, hey, do we want to keep doing that? Or is it time to go for something bigger, kinder, happier, more joyful? What's possible? I always figure if you've been given a life, you should push the envelope every single way that you can, so that it makes it even bigger and better and kinder and nicer and sweeter and funnier for the next lot. And it may take many generations to do that. And it may look different. For some of us, it's, I'm the first one to learn to not be ill, not be sad, not be poor. Don't underestimate your steps ever. Every step you take is a step that takes the system forward, unless you're trying to march back that way. And by the way, something to say about that is, when we find ourselves stuck and we can't move, very often you're caught in what we call a systemic trance. You're loyal to the ways of the system, and the loyalty is stronger than that goal that you've got sitting over there.
That's such a great outlook on life, what you were just saying, like leave it better for the next generation. But, we hear that, but like in the sense of, how can we push these boundaries? So let's say that someone's adopted or, something like that. Is it the person who's raised you's genealogy, or is it your actual like biological DNA?
You don't have half, you have twice. So it's both. It's the one, so your biological parents will give you some of the genealogy. Your epigenetics could also, though, come from your adoptive parents. So really, if you're adopted, and by the way, I have a daughter who's adopted, you're twice as lucky. You've been chosen twice, once to live and once to flourish. And what I often see with adoptees is, they, not always, because you can have middle of the road, but very often they'll be ultra high achievers or very low achievers. It's as though the low achievers go, it doesn't matter what I do, I'll never belong. And the ultra high achievers go, I will do everything to show that I deserve to belong. But the beauty of adoptees is that very often they create a sense of belonging for those around them. And that's part of their gift. They're very special and very lucky people.
That's really beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And I mean, and I guess that's where the epigenetics comes in play, right? Like if they get that high achieving mindset or that more victimized mindset, right?
Yeah, and we choose it. That's something for everybody to know. A lot of people will argue and say, I did not choose for this to happen to me. No, but you chose what you do with it. We always are at choice. I had somebody who came in, I think I'll probably never forget, and she stood up, it was in one of the classes, and she burst into tears and she said, I got raped. I never chose that. And I said to her, no. She said, I never chose any of this. I said, yeah, you did. She said, no, I didn't. I said, you did. What choice did you make? And she said, the only thing I chose was to live. I said, that was the choice that you made. And it was a very courageous choice. You made a choice. We need to not invalidate our choices, but we need to be aware that we are choosing.
I think that's really important, especially in today's day and age where it's almost become trendy to be a victim, especially on social media.
Did you see my head go down? Oh, yes. It's become sanitized, sanctified, monetized, and any other ties you can think of. And it's not great because it locks us down and it stops us from achieving everything we could. We see ourselves as part of a demographic that was downtrodden since who knows when. We see ourselves as part of another group who's never been looked at well. Okay, so change it. Don't sit and repeat it. Change it. And then the next thing is, don't change it by fighting, because everybody thinks they've got to fight. No, you don't. Don't fight it, build it. When we start to build and we start to really become shining examples and happy examples, we all win. When we have to fight, all we do is swap the victim and perpetrator roles. That's all.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and also, like angry people can't create a peaceful world, right? Like you can't fight for peace. You can't fight for justice. The two things just don't go hand in hand. Like you said, you
No.
have to, your inner world creates your outer world. You have to be that example. And then you are this beacon, this light that everyone else rises up to.
I think people don't understand when we say our inner world creates our outer world. It's all about the adventure starts inside. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's when you start to have an adventure in your heart, your mind, and your gut that the adventure travels outside you. It never was outside there. You're the one going in search of it. It's not going in search of you. And yeah, we cannot do the victim. It's so bad. It's so bad.
It is. And like you said, it's just been monetized and, people want to, you know what it is? It's people not stepping into their own power, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it is. They don't step into their own power because they don't believe they have it. And they also want to belong. And so it's become trendy to be part of the victim club.
Right, because you get attention, right? You get people feeling bad for you. You get people, maybe paying for things. You get pity, all of these things, but you don't get to really step into your power and become like follow your life purpose, like you've been talking about.
You don't get to have the adventure you could have had. You don't get to see how far you could have gone because you're too busy going down the other way. Yeah. And that's not nice.
Yeah. So I want to talk about emotional DNA.
Go for it.
Yeah, like the whole idea of it's really interesting to me. Is it this idea that like emotions are passed down through generations? So if there's this feeling of unworthiness or this feeling of lack or this feeling of shame, it's like each subsequent generation passes it down and now you're just carrying all that. Okay.
Yes. Your patterns of thoughts, feelings, actions, inactions are passed. So you inherit them two ways, epigenetically or word of mouth, feeling, thought, and action. Think about your mom. You watch your mom sitting crying in a corner because she says, well, after I got married, it was over for me. My career was over. Yet girls don't have careers. So what do? You say, oh dear, okay, I'm going to get married. Then my career is done because girls don't have careers. So we wind up with this whole system of thoughts and feelings and actions. Instead of going, is that really true? Do I want that to be really true? We inherit those very, very deeply. And you can look at it in women, you can look at it in different races. It's a very strong meta pattern that comes down until somebody says, I'm not playing this game, it doesn't work for me. I think I'd like to do it differently. And everybody goes, what? You're going to die. They're going to beat you to death. And when they don't beat you to death, then everybody goes, well, okay, if they can do it, I guess maybe I'll try it too. And then boom, boom, boom. So yes, it's your patterns of thoughts, feelings, and actions that you inherit from generation to generation, and it can go back many, 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 many generations.
So when it comes to, thanks for the explanation. When it comes to getting, like, changing this emotional DNA, is it the same kind of idea? Like, you figure out your patterns, you figure out how you want to feel, or like, I mean, I'm a big proponent in like energy healing, and I love the Emotion Code. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's literally about like getting rid of these emotions from ancestors, right? That are trapped in you. So, is there any kind of spiritual practice to this, or is it really just like, no, we're going to figure out your patterns, like we're going to bring this down to earth, and this is how we change things?
So you don't want to get rid of an energy pattern. You don't. What you want to look at is, where did it originate, or where does it seem to have come from? Is it serving a purpose now? Here's the thing with systems: everything belongs. Everything belongs. And the minute you try to exclude anything, it creates an energy that becomes louder and louder over time. It creates this pattern that expands and repeats. And the purpose of that is, hey, see me, give me a place. So we have great-grandmother who is incarcerated by great-grandfather because he wants her money. Well, now the energy that comes down from that, or the pattern, is, be very, very careful. If you get married, it's all over for you. You will lose everything. So all of the women for 5 generations can't stay with men. They're terrified. They can't get married, or if they get married, they get divorced quickly. That comes all the way down to you. You're sitting with this great bundle of yuck energy, and you look at this guy across from you and you go, I love you, but I know you're going to kill me. No, that isn't yours. That belongs back there. When you can put it back where it belongs and say, hey, I see you, and that's not for me, and now it's my turn to do it differently. Well, now you start to have new thoughts and new feelings, and suddenly there's a gentleness, and men aren't the enemy. In fact, they're rather lovely creatures, and you'd quite like that one sitting opposite you to be with you. And all of a sudden, you're changing your emotional DNA, your patterns of thought, your patterns of feelings, your patterns of actions. And here's this gorgeous guy. And is it spiritual? I always say to people, I'm the practical spiritualist. I can show you how to do it practically, but it's going to go very deep, because it will change you at your core. You're going to see that you're an incredible being who's just forgotten that for a while. And you're going to go on a huge adventure and hopefully show other people how to do it too. So it is both. It is spiritual, and it's as scientific and spiritual as two together can be, each in service of the other, but it is deeply transformational, deeply. People, and the thing about it is, it can happen very quickly during one of these events, because you start to rewire in the moment. And so you can see that whole body rewiring, and people will come in the next day and go, I'm not thinking the same kind of stuff. It's gone. Well, yeah, because you finally said, here's your place, here's my place, goodbye. So you don't get rid of it.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. It reminds me of that saying, like, what you resist persists, right? So it's about going towards what you want rather than trying to change anything. And I just appreciate that, because I feel like so often when we're doing personal development work and we find something that's not serving us, it's like, oh, I need to get rid of that, or oh, I need to change it. But we can just kind of see it, acknowledge it, and then just move on with what we're trying to do.
It's actually see it, acknowledge it, give it its place, because it has a place. It really does. It got you here. So it has a place. It's part of you. So give it its place, and you can take the next step.
Okay, so let's use the money example. Let's say there's this money block, and
Sure.
I see that and I recognize it. How do I give it its place? Like, how do I do that in practical terms?
Okay, so let's suppose it began with great-grandfather. He gambled the family fortune away, and now everybody is incredibly risk averse. You have this great investment. You've done all your due diligence. You know you can make money, and you're going, I can't do it because there's this that's happening. When you can turn around, if we can plot that for you and put you, dad, grandfather, great-grandfather, and that's where the money flow stopped. And you can look at that and go, that's where the money flow stopped. That's where those sayings came from. Okay, that doesn't belong with me. I see where it came from, and I know it's in my lineage, but I get to do something different. So I'm leaving that with you back there. And watch me please everybody, because I'm going to do it a bit differently. And then it's turning around and looking at, how do I want to do this differently? And saying to money, okay, time for flow to happen again. Let's go. It's recreating the energy the way you want it to, and it's taking the adventure in the direction you want it to go. And all of a sudden, everybody says, oh, you need to go to her. You know what? She's the money expert. Why? Because you looked at money with eyes of love, not fear. So you changed.
Have you seen a lot of people go from that fear to love?
Yes, because I make every single one of my clients do a money walk. Every single one of them. They have to go do a money walk. Even my Hong Kong bankers who look at me and they go, this is crazy. And then they come back and they go, this works. And I go, yep, because money is not a commodity, it's a relationship. And the way you show up for it is the way it will show up for you.
And what is a money walk? Is that what you just did, like walking through the ancestors?
No, the money walk was something that, you know, those things that happen to you and you go, oh. So we moved over to the US, had pretty much nothing. And I went outside one day, really just at a low point, and said, okay, God, guides, universe, whatever you are, I need to talk to money. And I'm waiting to kind of get hit on the back of the head, because we shouldn't do that stuff, you know, with all of those things that we're not supposed to do. And I think basically what I heard was a bit of a chuckle, and I thought, okay, so I'm not being killed, so I'm going to talk to money here. Went on a long walk and realized I'd been in relationship with money since I was a kid. Back then, you could pick up bottles, and I think in California, I think you can still do it. If you traded them in, you got a penny or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And that was money. I mean, I enjoyed doing that, because then I could trade that for candy. So I knew that I'd had that. There were stories going even further back. And I realized that at that stage, as a kiddo, I'd been really in love with money. I'd been good friends with it. It was fun. It was great. It was as I grew up and started to hear all of the family and the meta patterns around money that it became the scary creature. If you don't do it this way, you won't get that. If you don't have it, you're going to die. Yuck. And I'd gotten myself into a corner. And I think I walked for about an hour and a half, and I told money all of my biggest fears, all of my biggest wishes, my wants, all of my sadnesses. And then I said to money, you know what? I'd really like to be a friend. There's something, I can feel you're an energy. You're not just this thing. I want to be a friend. And on the way back, I picked up, and everybody laughs, but my daughter was there, a $1, a $5, a $10, a $20, a $50, and a Benjamin. And that's when I realized, hey, money is not a commodity. This is a living, breathing force. Mm-hmm. And I promised it then that I would teach money DNA, which I do, and that I would show people that it was a wise mentor, a really good disciplinarian, and it likes to be liked, and it likes to be friendly, and you're the limit, not it.
I love that you picked it up along the way. Like you just came across bills on the ground.
Wild. People were walking over it, and I was looking behind and looking to see who was pranking me and what was not. And that's what happened.
That's really amazing. So ever since then, has money just flowed and it hasn't been a problem?
Money flows a lot easier for me. Now, when I get like this, or I forget to talk to money, then I always have this picture. So I was going in to do a deal, and I thought, okay, I'll just do it. I don't need to talk about money. We'll get to that bit later. And I could hear the sulk coming off to the side. It was like, oh, really? You want to go do this without me? Okay, you show me how that works out. And I thought, oh, come on. And I walked in, did not do a great deal, came out, and I went, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So before I go in to go and speak to somebody, when I've got a client who's coming, I have a conversation with money. What does it look like? What are we going to give? What is the value we're going to add here? What does that contract look like? So as an executive coach, I talk to money and I teach people to talk to money, and they all go, and then as I say, they all come back and go, it works. Yeah, it works.
Well, I'm going to try it. That's amazing. And you just talk out loud to it. You don't go into meditation.
Good morning, money. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you. Today I have a hot bath because guess what? I have the money to pay for the electricity and the water. It's awesome. Thank you, money. We got to go and make a little bit of magic over there. That was really needed. Okay, money, because of you, I get to go on a vacation this coming week. I am so grateful. And yes, money shows up.
So you talk about what you're grateful for with it. Do you ask it to come into your life too?
Oh, yeah. Can we have a conversation? Because really, I need you to flow here. And it's more not a case of I need, but here's what it looks like. Here's what I'm looking at. Can we flow through to this? I really want you to come work with me on this, or walk with me on this. Here's how I think we can partner. So it's really using money as a partner and a friend. And when I forget, it's a really good disciplinarian. When I started executive coaching, before I knew about money, as I do now, I walked in and I was asked to tender for quite a big contract, and I didn't get it. And I said to the lady, could you just tell me, what happened? Did I ask too much? And she said, no, you asked too little. And so we realized you weren't a top coach. I did not make that mistake twice. And that was because I had not valued myself around money, and I hadn't spoken to money. And so I paid the price. So when we undervalue ourselves and we say, I really don't make much money, ask yourself what you're telling yourself. How are you undervaluing yourself? Where did that come from? You're probably part of a meta pattern that says, don't be greedy, don't ask, la, 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 la. And then we have people who go, you know what, money? If you and I work together, think of all of these good things that we can do in the world. And money goes, I'm there for the game. Let's do it.
Okay, so just to play or just to ask questions or play devil's advocate, as someone who has undervalued myself, that one like hit hard, especially with coaching programs. You know, when you're making these presentations or trying to sell from stage, and everyone's like, "Oh, this sounds amazing, but I can't afford it," and you're like, "Oh, my prices were already low." Like, what's that? Like, how do you break out of that?
So the first thing to do, and so here you go. Next time you talk about money, what you're going to tell people is, here's my coaching program. This is what it looks like. The first thing that you're likely going to tell yourself is, I can't afford it. That's lesson number one. If you think you can't afford it, okay, I'll see you in a year's time. Please come and visit me. You can start saving to where you can afford it, or you can keep telling yourself you can't afford it. Whichever one you want to play in your head is going to become your reality. Alternatively, you could come and see me, and you're going to find that you will find ways to make that happen, and you're going to start growing money. When I do events at Disney World, they are not cheap events. And people go, oh, that's a lot of money. And I go, yep. I want you to stretch, because now you're coming to Disney World. But I want you to stretch and see what luxury looks like when you come to Disney World. And I want you to experience that expanded state of mind and being. Because once you have, it doesn't matter how hard you try, you cannot go back to being as small as you were. So welcome. Bring yourself, bring your money, come and play, and watch yourself expand. It is a big step, because money is such a meta pattern. For 99% of the population, we live in scarcity. And for as long as we do, money sits off in the corner and goes, tell me when you're ready.
I mean, it totally makes sense, because everything is energy.
Yep.
And we really do create our own reality based off of our limiting beliefs or our empowered beliefs, our expanded beliefs.
Yep. And so here's what happened for me. You'll love this coaching story. So I had somebody call me. This was the universe, by the way, universe in action. So this lady calls me and she says, hey, we've heard about you and your coaching and the way that you coach, because I coach systemically. And she says, we'd really like to hire you as a coach for our top guy, but we don't want to pay X amount. It was a six-figure amount. We paid that last year, and we thought that was a bit much. Could you come in under that? Well, first of all, luckily for me, I have a poker face, because when she said six-figure for this amount of coaching, I nearly fell off my chair. I'd never asked that in my life. But I caught on super quickly. And I didn't get that one, but the very next one that came from the same company, oh, I asked under that and I got that. So all of a sudden I jumped from being a five-figure to a six-figure, but then I had to look at, here are my stories. Am I worth it? Is somebody going to find out I'm a fraud? How dare I ask that amount? I'll never get any more work again. No. So then what happened for me was, is your value add enough? So I realized I needed to build my value adds in. So that taught me to have enough value that people would say, well, of course, that's a no-brainer. If you're going to hire her, that's what she's going to cost, because here is everything that she can deliver. So it kind of pulled me up by my socks and went, you want this? Good, let's go play. But now you've got to make sure that you're worth that. And so, yeah, I make very sure that I'm worth what people are paying.
Yeah, over deliver. I love it. That's a great story. I'm feeling very inspired, and I really appreciate you. We only have a few minutes left. So is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you feel is really important to get out there to people?
Yeah, I would say it's time to wake up seriously. Seriously. Life is a huge adventure, and you're an incredible life if you know how to see it. But stop saying, I can't afford, I can't be, I can't do, and start figuring out how you can be, and how you can do. And really start looking at where you're stuck and where you want to be. The one is pushing the other one to happen.
Beautiful message. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on the show. And I'm sure listeners want to know where they can find you, how they can work with you, where you live on the internet. So please feel free to share.
So, thank you. My website is judywilkins-smith.com. I'm all over Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm there. They can find me directly from my website. They will find books, they will find Constellations meditations, which, by the way, then takes you through your whole lineage. It does an entire piece of work with you via that constellation. And I got super lucky. The composer and the producer of my two meditations, the one is the father's lineage, the other is the mother, is the same person who composes for Joe Dispenza. He is an amazing composer, super guy. They'll also find my live events, and my event this year at Disney World is November the 1st through the 4th, and it's Vaulting from Fear to Freedom. So it's really looking at where are all of those little fears that I carry, and how do I move through those and into my life's adventure. And yeah, I think the most important thing for people to know, it's really important, is what we've been talking about isn't just a nice idea. It's literally the reality that's waiting to be claimed. All you've got to do is step in and say yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm sure listeners do. If you are listening and this resonated, like, comment, share, subscribe, send it to someone you think could use it. And I will see you all next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day.